Hey guys, welcome back to podcast 9 3/4. I'm your host, the Ironborn Princess. In this video, I'm going to cover all 18 kings and queens who appear across all 8 seasons of Game of Thrones. But before I get started, be sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Alright, so we will start off with Aerys II Targaryen. Aerys II is the last Targaryen king to rule the 7 kingdoms and is better known as the Mad King. He's the father of Rhaegar, Viserys, and Daenerys. Aerys II's claim to the Iron Throne is backed up by generations of previous Targaryen kings, beginning with Aegon I. It's thanks to Aerys II that we learned early on why the Targaryens were so feared and how dangerous having Targaryen madness so close to the Iron Throne. Aerys II's reign came to an end during Robert's rebellion when he is killed by Jaime Lannister, a member of his King's Guard, during the sack of King's Landing. This is where Jaime's nickname of Kingslayer comes from. Aerys II only ever appears in flashbacks, frequently shown screaming for his men to burn them all before he's stabbed in the back. Robert Baratheon. Robert succeeds Aerys II as king and establishes the Baratheon royal house. Beyond winning the throne through the war known as Robert's Rebellion before the events of the show, he also lays claim to the House Baratheon's Targaryen connections with its founder Orys, believed to be the bastard half-brother of Aegon I. Once crowned, Robert married Cersei Lannister, and they have 3 children, Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen. Unknown to Robert, Cersei's children are actually fathered by her brother Jaime. Robert's reign lasts for 15 years, coming to an end in Season 1 when he dies from a wound received during a boar hunt. The injury, however, wasn't an accident and was set up by Cersei. Joffrey Baratheon. Following the death of his father in Season 1, Joffrey becomes the next king, though that hadn't been Robert's plan. On his deathbed, Robert signed a decree naming his hand and friend, fellow rebel Eddard Ned Stark, as protector of the realm and regent until his heir came of age. Learning this, Cersei destroys the royal decree and has Joffrey crowned anyway, cementing his position as rightful king. Obviously, this decision isn't universally accepted by the courts of King's Landing. For his attempt at overthrowing Joffrey by declaring him illegitimate, Ned is arrested for treason and later executed. Joffrey rules for 4 years until he dies in Season 4 during the reception of his marriage to Margaery Tyrell. He was poisoned by Olenna Tyrell. Tommen Baratheon. Having not lived long enough to produce an heir of his own, Joffrey is succeeded by his younger brother Tommen as king in Season 4. Tommen also takes Margaery as his wife, since a union between houses Baratheon and Tyrell is still favorable, and Joffrey and Margaery never consummated their marriage. Tommen's reign as king of the 7 kingdoms is even shorter than his brother's, with Tommen only ruling for 3 years before his death by suicide in Season 6. He dies when he throws himself from the Red Keep after witnessing the Sept of Baelor's destruction and knowing that his wife had died in the blast and that his mother Cersei is responsible. Cersei Lannister. Cersei finally has herself crowned queen following Tommen's death in Season 6. Her claim lies not in any lineage or tradition, but simply because most of her enemies die when the Sept of Baelor explodes, leaving no one to stop Cersei from taking the Iron Throne. Though many will dispute her claim, she manages to reign for 2 years. The end for Cersei comes when Daenerys Targaryen's forces attack King's Landing in Season 8. While Drogon is laying waste to the Red Keep, sections of the castle collapse and crush both Cersei and her brother, Jaime. Renly Baratheon. Robert's death in Season 1 is one of the events that starts off the War of the 5 Kings. The conflict sees Robert's 2 younger brothers, Stannis and Renly Baratheon, trying to take the Iron Throne from Joffrey, believing Ned's declaration that Joffrey isn't Robert's true-born son, and therefore not the legitimate king. Renly is quick to declare himself king following his brother's death, unbothered by the fact that he's actually the younger brother of the 2 remaining Baratheons. Renly gains the allegiance of practically every southern lord and builds a massive army, but it's ultimately all for naught because in Season 2, Renly is killed by a shadow creature sent by the Lady Melisandre on Stannis' orders. Stannis Baratheon. Stannis declares himself king in around the same time Renly does. And as the older brother, his claim as Robert's successor is much stronger. However, Stannis is not well liked and he struggles to build support. He does have the Lady Melisandre on his side, and she's a valuable ally, but her magic cannot win him the throne. Stannis makes little headway in taking the Iron Throne, remaining a king without a kingdom for 4 years. In the season 5 finale, Stannis' army is decimated outside of Winterfell after he attempts to remove Ramsay Bolton from the castle. He's later discovered on the battlefield by Brienne of Tarth, who kills Stannis for his part in murdering Renly. Viserys Targaryen. When Aerys II is killed, House Targaryen does not die out. 2 of his children, Viserys and Daenerys, survive and are sent across the narrow sea to Essos for safety. They drifted from one free city to the next and occasionally taken in by those loyal to House Targaryen, but just as often, the 2 children had to beg on the street. During this time, Viserys, the rightful king, earns the title the Beggar King. After trying and failing to gather support for his claim to the Iron Throne for almost 2 decades, Viserys exchanges his sister in marriage to Khal Drogo for the promise of a Dothraki army. However, Viserys' entitled behavior earns him no friends among the Dothraki, and when he threatens his pregnant sister, now a Khaleesi, Viserys is killed by Khal Drogo midway through Season 1. Daenerys Targaryen. After Viserys' death, his sister Daenerys Targaryen becomes the last known surviving member of House Targaryen and the rightful queen. Her claim to the Iron Throne is among the strongest of any king or queen, but beginning her quest to rule while on another continent puts her at an early disadvantage. Daenerys' dragons, however, give her the power to fight for her claim to the throne, and during Season 7, she arrives in Westeros. Daenerys allies herself with Jon Snow, king in the north, and together they defeat the Night King and Cersei. With her enemies all destroyed, Daenerys is the presumptive queen, but her campaign to rule the 7 kingdoms has turned her cruel, and Daenerys burned King's Landing in retribution. Jon was unable to let Daenerys take her place on the Iron Throne and stabs her in the Season 8 finale. Mance Rayder. Not every king or queen in Game of Thrones is interested in the Iron Throne. Mance, for instance, is a former member of the Night's Watch who deserts the order to live among the wildlings north of the Wall. He manages the impossible and unites the different wildling clans, leading them south and earning himself the title King Beyond the Wall. Unlike most, Mance's title as king is given out of respect rather than tradition. In the Season 4 finale, Mance is captured when Stannis' army arrives at the Wall, and in the Season 5 premiere, he is set to be burned at the stake, but instead Mance is killed by Jon Snow, who takes pity on his suffering and shoots him through the heart with an arrow. Balon Greyjoy. The 7 Kingdoms is 7 different regions in Westeros and were ruled as separate sovereign kingdoms until the Targaryens invaded and united them all under a single ruler. One of the earlier kingdoms is the Iron Islands, who once ruled over their own islands, as well as much of the Riverlands. After the death of Robert in Season 1, Balon declares himself as king, as head of the Iron Islands, for the second time. Balon declaring himself king of the Iron Islands was strategic. He hoped to use the ensuing chaos to break away from the 7 kingdoms and rule from the Salt Throne. Balon manages to rule as king of the Iron Islands for 5 years and claim some territory in the north, though all of these gains were eventually lost. In Season 6, Balon is killed by his younger brother Euron, who returns home to claim the Salt Throne for himself. Euron Greyjoy. Coming in Season 6, Euron has previously been living in exile following the order of his brother Balon's first rebellion against the crown. When he returns, Euron kills his brother, but cannot simply declare himself the next king of the Iron Islands because it goes against the Ironborn tradition. On the Iron Islands, the right to rule must be won in the King's Moot, a ceremony in which they make their claim to the Salt Throne, present their case, and it's left to the assembled Ironborn to choose their new king. The King's Moot ultimately picks Euron as king, and he rules the Iron Islands for 2 years. But he spends most of that time chasing after his niece and nephew, and entering a poorly thought-out alliance with Cersei. Euron dies in Season 6 when he is killed by Jaime during a brawl. Yara Greyjoy. In the event of his death, Balon hoped for his daughter Yara to be a queen, but such wishes go against the Ironborn tradition. Instead, Yara makes an effort to win the crown in the King's Moot, but her uncle Euron proves too convincing and wins the crown instead. Yara and Theon must then flee or be killed. They sail to Meereen, where they seek out Daenerys, and the 2 desperate queens form an alliance. Yara is able to retake the Iron Islands in Season 8, and after the death of Euron and Theon, her claim as Queen of the Iron Islands is undisputed. But Yara chooses to remain loyal to the 7 kingdoms and gives up her crown, settling for the title of Lady of the Iron Islands and taking part in the election of Bran as king. Robb Stark. The North's involvement in the War of the Five Kings begins when Robb Stark declares war on the Lannisters following the arrest and execution of his father Ned. While on the march south, the Northern Bannermen swear fealty to Robb and crown him King of the North during Season 1's finale. This action transforms Robb's campaign from winning justice for his father into one of Northern succession. The North is no longer recognizing Joffrey as their king, and they wish to become an independent kingdom ruled by the Starks as they had been prior to the Targaryens conquering. Though Robb wins every battle, his reign as king ends with his death in Season 3, coming during the Red Wedding when he's betrayed by Walder Frey and murdered by Roose Bolton. Sansa Stark. For much of the show, Sansa is just a pawn in the plans for more powerful people. During Season 6, though, she reunites with Jon Snow, and together they defeat Ramsay Bolton and win back Winterfell. Once again in her home, Sansa takes on the role of Lady of Winterfell, while the Northern Bannermen declare Jon as their new king in the north. But when Daenerys arrives in Westeros, Jon chooses to swear fealty to her, upsetting many of the Northern lords, including Sansa. Soon after, it's revealed Jon is actually the legitimate heir to the Iron Throne, and even though he gives up that responsibility, he does not reclaim his title as king in the north. Instead, the Northern lords choose Sansa, Ned's oldest living child and the only Stark remaining at Winterfell, to be crowned queen in the north and in Season 8's finale. The show ends with her ruling over the newly independent kingdom. Bran Stark. After Jon kills Daenerys and renounces his claim, there is no clear heir to the Iron Throne. In fact, there's no longer an Iron Throne. When the Lords of Westeros assembled to decide the fates of Jon Snow and Tyrion Lannister, a proposal was put forward by Tyrion that this council should choose a new king. Following some deliberation, Tyrion gives a speech for Bran Stark to be crowned king, saying that he'd be a just king, seeing as he's also the three-eyed raven and holds all the world's memories. The council agrees, and in the first election of its kind, Westeros lands Bran the Broken as king of the newly formed Six Kingdoms. The Night King. The supernatural threat facing every king and kingdom in Westeros is the White Walkers, led by the Night King. Season 6 reveals that the Night King was originally human, one of the first men who inhabited Westeros, until he was transformed by the children into the very first White Walker. The White Walkers were created to defeat the invading First Men, but the children could not control their own creation. The Night King waged war on Westeros, blanketing the continent in darkness during an age known as the Long Night. The Night King's army was eventually driven north by the First Men and the children, and the wall was built to keep the White Walkers from invading again. During Season 8, the Night King breaches the wall and leads his forces south. A great battle ensues at Winterfell between the armies of the living and the dead. During the battle, the Night King is destroyed by Arya Stark using a Valyrian steel dagger and ending his reign of terror. Jon Snow. Though he begins as the bastard son of Ned Stark, it's revealed that Jon Snow is actually the true-born son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark. Jon, whose real name is Aegon, is the rightful heir to the Iron Throne, supplanting the claim of even his aunt Daenerys. Of course, Jon's not interested in becoming king. He fights to place Daenerys on the throne instead, but witnessing how ruthless she's become, he kills her for the good of the realm and all those she hoped to conquer. Jon is arrested for killing her, but rather than being executed, the newly crowned Bran the Broken sends him to the wall again to take the black and join the Night's Watch. Let me know in the comments section who you think had the strongest claim to the throne, and be sure to like and subscribe. Okay, love you. Bye.